Are you still finding it hard to get the meeting request? Do you want me to share with you? All right, Rajat. So I'm just sharing the meeting ID in chat. All right. So I have put the meeting ID on chat. It is 88024105. All right. So going ahead with respect to the revision. So I told you like you have data center. All right. And if in case the data center itself goes down, then you have basically availability zone. So availability zone is collection of data center, which is for the collection of racks and which is for the collection of servers. All right. In case if your one availability goes down, then you have region. Region is collection of availability zone. And in case if a region goes down, then you have, sorry, in case a region goes down, then you have, you know, another region within the geography. So geography is basically collection of regions. And remember that you can always have region pairing between the two regions in a same geography. All right, please do remember all these things. Okay, so this way we have identified how the Azure infrastructure is laid down and well architected, and why this kind of an architecture, just to give more and more redundancy, high availability, as well as performance and capacity. All right. So these are a couple of things that you get from Azure infrastructure so that you can confidently host your line of business application on cloud. Okay. Now, further, we have discussed what you call it as availability set. Now, I have a question. Do you remember what exactly availability set is? And if you remember, then please do put your views on availability set, what we discussed yesterday. Come on, start giving your views. Anyone who wants to put? All right. If you want me to, then I will proceed. So when I say availability set, this is basically, a feature within Azure with the help of which you can define that if my line of business application is running on, cloud, then I want it to be, running on two server hardware, and both of the server hardware should be from two different racks. Now, why so? If one server goes down, then from the other server, line of business application is available. If one rack goes down, then line of business application is available from the other rack server. All right. So this will be treated as a fault domain. See, basically availability set defines two things: planned maintenance and unplanned maintenance. Unplanned maintenance means fault. So for that you have fault domains, and you define that line of business application should be running on two servers. So it is running on two instances, but both the instances are coming from two different servers from two different racks. So this way you have the fault domain, and similarly you have the planned maintenance, which is basically a maintenance activity, just like upgrading the kernel. So in this case, what will I do? I will first bring down the instance from rack 1 server under maintenance, and I will upgrade the kernel. Meanwhile, the system from rack 1 server is under maintenance. The rack 2 server would be delivering the line of business application. And then finally, once I am done with the kernel upgrading activity, I will, put back my rack 1 server for serving line of business application. And once I find both of them are serving appropriately, then I will bring the second system under maintenance. So I can do the kernel upgradation maintenance activity onto the second system. All right. So availability set defines all these things. All right. And then after that, we have moved ahead and we discussed what exactly a resource group is. Okay. So whenever you go and consume from Azure, like for example, if I am, requesting for an instance, then definitely there will be RAM, processor, networking, disk, and if even you have requested for database, then I will say database also. Now, I cannot just keep all these things scattered. To give a management, appropriate management, what I'm doing, I am putting all these things into a resource group. So resource group is a logic container. It's a logical container, and inside this container, you will have all your resources. And finally, why are we grouping all these resources in one logical container? To achieve our management practices, just like who can access what resource in a resource group. All right. Finally, on the basis of the expertise in network, administrator will be allowed to access the resource group networking resources. All right. A database administrator will be allowed to access database resources from that resource group, and they will be able to perform the activities on top of it. All right. This is a very simplified part, and please remember about it. I think, all right. Yes, sharing of screen has stopped, looks like. Just a minute. Huh? Okay. And then going ahead, we have seen what exactly Azure Resource Manager is. All right. So, any idea what exactly Azure Resource Manager is? Any of your view? Okay, no problem. So, I told you that when it is the consumer who gives instructions to the Azure portal for computing related needs, this request will come. This request will, okay, I think once again the screen sharing has stopped. Just a minute. Do you do you see the system screen?
No, no, not yet.
Okay, okay. Just a minute. Just a minute, huh? Okay, so the system screen is visible to all of you now.
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah, visible, visible.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, so as I was speaking to you that whenever you look forward to give instructions to the Azure portal for your computing related needs, the instructions from the Azure portal, they come to an orchestration layer, or I would call it as automation layer. All right, this automation layer is Azure Resource Manager. And finally, what Azure Resource Manager is going to do, Azure Resource Manager is going to give this instruction further to the Azure Computing Service. Because Azure Computing Service itself provides you with your CPU, RAM, processor, network, disk. Yesterday we have discussed it. And then finally from there it comes to the virtualization. Okay, and from there the resources are delivered and finally your VM is composed and it is published for you. Okay, so Azure Resource Manager is a very important piece of software within Azure. All right, is that okay to you? I really would appreciate if you can acknowledge because it helps me to understand your level of understanding.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot. So I'll appreciate if you will keep on giving me the acknowledgement. All right. Going ahead, and then we saw the compute service. So when I say compute service, this was my you know last slide. So whenever you require any of the computing, your request will go to the core Azure service, that is compute service. And compute service provides you with the computing on demand. Okay, so you get processor, RAM, disk, networking, and operating system. Okay, and the computing service is further categorized into two, that is virtual machine and container. Under virtual machine, I told you like you have all these resources available. So you can either opt for a Azure virtual machine, which is purely infrastructure, no operating system into it, or else you can opt for VM skill set. What exactly VM skill set? It is another product which will help your virtual machine to scale up. Scale up means if more resources are required, then it can spin up another virtual machine, and finally the two virtual machines would be delivering your line of business application. Okay, now you must be thinking how it is doing like operating system configuration, installation of application software. Well, that's absolutely true, but for a VM skill set to work, you actually give a identical or a template virtual machine on the basis of which the spinning is done. All right. So when I say template, I mean to say it will be of same hardware, it will be of same operating system, same configuration. I mean to say operating system configuration, and then finally it will also have the line of business application. So now you have two virtual machines who are serving for your line of business application. And the VM skill set will only work when there is an notification. And what is that notification? I have set a parameter on my VM that if the processor is consumed for 60% for 5 consecutive minutes. It means if the processor is consumed 60 minutes, sorry, 60% for 5 minutes, then a notification should go and then that notification should run the VM skill set policy. And in the VM skill set policy, it is defined that how many number of machines is supposed to be added and what is the template from which this scaling is supposed to be done. All right. And then I have discussed with you what exactly app services is. So I told you like you are a startup company, you don't want to involve yourself into hardware, you don't want to hire the administrators, you just want that your line of business application should be hosted and it should be operational. So for that purpose you have the platform as a you have the app services from Azure, which is basically platform as a service, And finally, Azure will take care of the hardware, operating system, configuration of operating system. If your application is PHP based, then they themselves will install the PHP framework. And if it requires a database, then they will have another machine wherein they will be installing operating system. They will also have an database. And finally, this database is connected to the line of business application system. And finally, what are you focusing on? You're just focusing on your code, and you just put your code to the app services. And finally, once it is put into the app services, your overall line of business application becomes available for your customers in some minutes. Okay, you just focus only and only on creation of application. You make your application more agile. Got it? And then we have also discussed what exactly the function is. All right. So you remember I gave you the example of storage, and on that storage, couple of my users are storing data, and then I want that whenever the data is stored on that storage, a code should run by its own, and finally that code will access the storage, and it will access the files, and it will check for who created this file, what is the size of this file, at what time this file is created, what is the format of this file. All these things are supposed to be done. All right. And this code, when it runs, it requires a computer. Well, it will be running. So who provides this computer? This computer is provided by the Azure Functions service. And this computer, it does not keep on running. It only starts when someone stores data on the storage. The moment the operation is complete, this computing resources will be pulled back by the Azure. Got it? So actually I am paying for Azure function only the time I am using it. Please remember, this is only called as serverless computing. Got it very clear? Is that okay to you all? Any doubts so far? Acknowledgement, please.
Yes.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you very much. And going ahead, now further discussing the second category of compute service, that is containers. Now, my question to you, do you have any idea about what is container? I'm not speaking with respect to that resource group container. I'm speaking with respect to container. Have you heard of something called as Docker, Kubernetes? I hope you are all available and active enough.
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, I'm just
Yes,
asking
we
to
are.
all of you, do you have any idea what exactly container is? Have you
I
heard
have
of
heard about
container
the
from?
Docker.
Okay, you have heard about the Docker. Any idea what
Yep.
exactly Docker is and what it does?
No.
Okay, if you have idea, that's well. If you do not have, no problem. I'll bring the whiteboard and we'll discuss. All right. So just sharing the
Container is
screen.
just like the program that will be run on that particular the base Linux OS. It does not require any separate operating system to execute the
Very
program.
good.
Like
Very good. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Fine. So just allow me to put this on the whiteboard so that everyone has a clarity on the same. All right. Very good. So let's go ahead. So before we jump onto container, I have another question to all of you. Do you use operating system or you use the application software on the operating system? What do you do?
We use applications on the operating system.
Very good. We only use the application. All right. So now coming to the infrastructure, what we get after doing virtualization. All right. So putting all these things onto whiteboard and explaining it to you all. So I do have this hardware. On top of this hardware, you have virtualization, and then on top of it, you have these virtual machines, and they have the operating system, and they have this application. All right, and finally, these applications, what you people use. Okay, but if you will look into this architecture is, very much complex, and it is very much resource hungry. And sometimes I feel that this complexity is unnecessary, which makes this environment too much of resource hungry. And what is that? Why do I need these OS? I don't need these OS. When I know that my user only needs the application software, then why am I bringing in these operating systems in picture? So just because of these two operating system as well as this virtualization operating system, there are total three operating system, of which this hardware is bearing the load. All right. So I just want to cut short this. And how can I cut short this? I can cut short this with the help of containerization. And I do have Linux. And I do have a tool called as Docker. All right. So basically, you have a Docker utility, and what the Docker utility can do for you, the Docker utility can create application packages, and these application packages, they have all their required files and supporting programs, as well as they have the networking information like IP address and FQDN, and finally your user accesses these applications. And believe me, my dear friends, this is the future. All right, got the point? Now, there is only one operating system. What is that? Linux. Simplified. There is a Docker utility. What that Docker utility does? It is capable of composing the container. All right, container is nothing but packaging with its required resources. Got it? And that's why if this one application container goes down, it is not at all going to affect the other containers. Got it? So Docker utility can create a container, it can start a container, it can stop a container, it can remove a container. If this is okay to you, then I would like to go ahead and explain you what exactly Kubernetes is. Is this okay to all of you so far?
Yep.
Please
Yep.
acknowledge if it is
Yes.
okay to
Yes.
you all. All right, very good. And going ahead. So now going to Kubernetes. Now I say that I do have hardware, I do have Linux, plus I do have Docker. All right, and I do have these containers. Consider this is my line of business application. This is my line of business application backend database, and this is another component. For example, say payment gateway. All
Avesh,
right.
you're drawing
So
something because for me, whiteboard is white. It's clear. Okay,
yeah, it's
now it's
uploading.
clear.
Yeah, it's
All right.
uploading. All right, all right. I'll wait for it. No worries.
All right.
Yeah, it's lagging a little, I think. Looks like I have drawn very fast.
Yes.
All right, so you see this? And now I would say that when these three containers are well operational, then my line of business application is delivered to my customer. Is that okay?
Yes.
Now, this architecture is called as microservices. You may have heard of microservices. Have you ever heard about it or you have not?
No.
Okay. See what happens. Earlier, we used to do application packaging as monolithic. When I say monolithic, it means mostly the payment gateway component and web front end of line of business application will be one single system. Got it? And database also is sometimes into one single system. Got it? So this creates a monolithic architecture because all the components are into one single system. If there is a hardware failure, everything is down. If there's a operating system failure, everything is down. If payment gateway working within that application, still my line of business application would be not at all delivered properly. So what did we do? We decided to package the web-based line of business application front end as a single application packaging. Database, which is a backend, as a single application packaging, and payment gateway, which is another application, as a single packaging. And finally, what do? We keep all these components of line of business application isolated and they keep on listening to the request from each other and they reply back. Got it? So this methodology is called as microservices. And if you want these containers to communicate with each other, these containers should automatically heal in case any of the container goes down. For example, say my payment gateway container started misbehaving. So what should happen? Automatically another container which will have all the required software which can make the payment gateway as it is to spin up by its own. Okay, so this container is it will be removed and this container will take place. So finally, once again, app and DB will be able to, like communicate with the application gateway, and finally the line of business application is ready. This is all just because of microservices. And whenever microservices comes into picture for microservice related operation, you have Kubernetes. All right. Basically, we say that Kubernetes does the automation for microservices architecture. And also, you remember that Docker can only spin up few containers. But when it comes to Kubernetes, Kubernetes can fulfill the enterprise requirement related to containers. Like Kubernetes can spin up thousands of containers. Google is doing the same thing since few decades, but they have never come up with this to the public. All right. Some couple of years ago, this recipe was opened up by Google. All right. And this has really made things very simplified, things very agile, and you have a very fast, application delivery. Got it? It is said that if you can spin up 20 VMs in 10 minutes, then you can spin up 200 containers in 10 minutes. Containers are that lightweighted as compared to VMs. Why? Because VM have a very complex architecture. They have their own operating system. Why do they have it? I seriously don't understand. Got the point? So is this okay to you? Do you understand what exactly Kubernetes is and what exactly container is?
Yes.
If it is okay to you, then I'm going ahead. All right, so I
Yes,
would
please.
close this and starting to share my presentation. Okay, so finally you have what container services you have in Azure. You have Azure container instance. So if for example you want to spin up few containers, like for example 2 3 containers, then you can choose for compute service, and under compute service you will request for container service, and under container service you will choose Azure Container Instance product. All right, this is also purely platform as a service. See, no one is going to ask you what hardware do you want. No one is going to ask you please install Linux on it, please install Docker on it, and then only we will be creating the then only you will be able to create the container. No one is going to ask you. You simply give the instructions to Azure that I want a container, and all these underlying infrastructure and the operational overhead will be on Azure, and finally you will be provided with your container. Just like operating system images, there are container images to what you call it as registry. All right, we call it as container registry. Container registry are very much similar to the operating system images. Okay, and you have plenty of container registries available from community as well as from the companies who want their application to be packaged as a container. All right, and then finally, if you look forward to do microservices architecture for your line of business application, in that case you are supposed to do orchestration and automation. For that purpose you will require Kubernetes, and for that you have AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services. All right, is that okay? So whichever is your requirement, you consume it, and you will have that environment ready to serve your computing related needs. All right, and finally your line of business application. Is that okay? I still remember Ericsson has started delivering their network function virtualizations in the form of container. Got it? See, it is not that easy for all companies to manage and maintain the security. So for that purpose, what they can do, they can simply say that Ericsson, we want to use your firewall as a service, and finally the traffic for that company's line of business application would always pass from the firewall of the Ericsson. So they are just subscribing the firewall as a service of Ericsson to make their line of business application secure. Got it? This was just an example. Okay? You have certain other examples, just like SD-WAN software. All right? So there are a couple of big companies who are into SD-WAN software, and they deliver their SD-WAN software in the form of a container. All right? See, earlier
I,
they
I have
were
a I have
delivering.
a quick I have a quick
Yes, go ahead.
question.
All right, go ahead.
If there was a Kubernetes available, then what was the need of Docker?
Okay. See, to give you the clarification on this example, I would take you to virtualization. Tell me, is there any virtualization software installed on your laptop, just like VMware Workstation or VirtualBox?
No.
No. Consider that I am an end user. I am not a company. I am an end user, and I wanted to explore virtualization. So what would I
Mhm.
do? Will I go to VMware and purchase the vSphere suite itself, or will I go to VMware and will purchase VMware Workstation? What would I do? I would always go for a VMware Workstation. Why? Because
Yep.
with VMware Workstation, I can create couple of VMs, and I can, explore virtualization from the perspective of an end user. Similarly, if you want to explore containerization from the perspective of end user, you have a utility called as Docker. Got it? Whereas
Mhm.
when it comes to doing virtualization for an enterprise, just like my company decided to give virtual desktop environment. So when I say virtual desktop environment, definitely I will be spinning up hundreds of VMs which may have Windows 10 operating system.
Okay.
This I cannot do it from VMware Workstation. For this, I will really need a VMware vSphere environment, and from there I can definitely do it.
Makes
Why?
sense.
Because VMware vSphere is an enterprise virtualization software. Similarly, Kubernetes is an enterprise containerization software. Is that okay to you now? Because see,
Yep.
an enterprise demands for more features with respect to virtualization and containerization. All right.
So
So
it gonna cost higher than Docker then.
exactly, exactly. Definitely there will be. And it is not that easy also to, build the Kubernetes environment. It really requires good expertise onto networking side, onto storage side, onto, people who are very good with containerization, concepts. Got it? Any
Yep.
doubts so far? I hope this
Yep. I'm
resolves
good
your
now.
query. All right.
Yeah.
Good to go. So I'm very sorry. Can someone please tell me what I was discussing last? I just forgot. I'm very sorry. We were discussing,
The microservices stuff.
yes, we were discussing microservices. All right. So finally, if you have decided to deliver your line of business application as a microservice, then definitely you will require Kubernetes. Okay.
And in that case, if Office 365 is using Kubernetes,
Office 365 is using Kubernetes. Okay, so you want me to like tell you like is
no,
this
no, I'm
actually
asking you.
using?
I just want to confirm if they are using Kubernetes or else any some different virtualization is done over there.
See, what I can see that it is a software as a service. So as it is a software as a service, so definitely people would be just consuming it. It is all ready-made. So they have a robust hardware. On top of that robust hardware, they have an operating system, and on that operating system they have installed Microsoft Office, but this Microsoft Office has a web based front end. You can simply say Microsoft Office is no more a standalone installer. It has turned into an web-based application.
Application.
So as it has turned into a web-based application, so definitely on the operating system there is web server also running. And finally, this Microsoft Office application is delivered through the web. And finally, what customers do, they subscribe Microsoft Office. They have their username and password, and they have their own billing, whatever they consume for Microsoft Office. And finally, it gets delivered to the user who demands on the basis of a session. Because see, earlier what used to happen, you used to purchase the Microsoft Office. For that you used to pay for license, and then you used to have a hardware, and then on that hardware there has to be a Windows operating system. Then you used to install it, and then you used to use it. But practically speaking, was your license consumed effectively? No, it was not at all. Whereas in Office 365, there is no multiple license. There is one single, I don't think so, there is even license logic now. There is subscription logic. If you are a subscriber, then definitely you will give your username and password for Microsoft Office, and finally you will be able to subscribe the Microsoft Office services. Is that okay to you?
Yep, got you.
All right. So going ahead, and what do we have next? So I hope you are well aware of the core service compute, which has two streams, container and VM, and what all products do you have. Now finally coming to the very very important aspect, what I call it as Azure networking. And believe me, my dear friends, if you are not clear with the concepts of Azure networking, it really becomes difficult to understand how the communication is flowing. Okay, so to make you understand the networking services, I will put everything on whiteboard and will explain you everything one by one. Remember that you have you know five products under network services: virtual network, load balancer, VPN gateway, application gateway, and content delivery. All right, so let's go and discuss this on whiteboard. Okay, so I hope my whiteboard is visible to all of you. Okay, looks like it is on the way.
Not yet.
Yeah, there it is. In loading state. All right, so it's visible to all of you now.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good to go. Thanks a lot for the acknowledgement. Now, okay, consider that there is a requirement, and according to that requirement, 10 virtual machine instances are supposed to be spin on Azure, and they should be in one network. I mean to say, they should be all in a local area network. Correct? See, if I consider the same scenario in your on premises, then definitely you will require a switch. You will require system with LAN card, and a connecting media from the switch will come to the LAN card of the machine, and finally this is the physical networking topology. Then they all should be provided with the IP address from the same network, and then finally they will all be able to ping each other. Got it? So when I say Azure Virtual Network, when I say Azure Virtual Network, what exactly Azure Virtual Network is? Azure Virtual Network is the same local area network, but this local area network is spinning on the network of Azure. Is that okay to you? What exactly Azure Virtual Network is? Are we clear what exactly Azure Virtual Network is? And then finally, on this local area network, you may further have your subnets. All right, and you can keep your resources within this subnet as per your requirement. So you either may have a private subnet, or else you may have a public subnet also. Got it? The resources or the computers which you want to be accessible from internet, to those VMs you will put into public subnet. Like for example, my line of business application is a web-based application, so definitely people will be coming to my line of business application. So I should make sure that my line of business application is accessible from internet. So I will put it into public subnet. And similarly, the backend of my line of business application is database. I don't want anyone to come to my database. So I will put it into private. And always remember that two subnets on the virtual network can communicate with each other. It means the line of business application web server can ping to the database server in private subnet, but not someone who is coming from the internet. He can only access the line of business application web server. Please remember this. If this is okay to you, then I would go on to the load balancer. Is this clear to you all?
I have a question. If somebody is
Yeah.
having the access of private subnet, would he be having the access of public subnet as well?
See, if you are in my local area network, got it? See, whenever it comes to access, then access can be from outside of your network, as well as the access can be from inside of your network also. Just assume that this is my DB server, and this is my DB server, and this is my line of business application web server. They both are VM. Now there is another VM. There is another VM. All right. Now this VM is, for example, say this is within my local area network. Consider that it is into my private network. If it is into my private network, and if I have allowed, if I have allowed, communication within the private network, got it? Like for example, see, there is a concept of network security group. On the basis of that, even we can restrict the communication within the machine or within the specific machine of a network. Please remember this. So just keeping it very simple, if this VM is there available within my private subnet, then this VM can access to my database, provided you should have allowed accessing to database from this VM. If you have restricted, then definitely it cannot. Got it? And similarly, if this VM being into my private subnet, if it wants to, ping to my other subnet line of business application, then definitely it can. From internally, it can even access my line of business application. But if it is coming from internet, for example, this is a user and he is connecting to internet, and on his browser he is typing the URL for your line of business application, then his request will land over here. But once he is here, from here he cannot go over here. That is not possible because he is only provided the access of web-based application front end. Got it?
Public subnet. Yeah.
I hope this is clear to you.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, good to go. So if this is clear, then I would discuss the load balancer. All right, so I'm clearing the screen and now I have an environment. So in this environment, you consider this way. Assume that this is region Mumbai, and within the region Mumbai,
There is a delay in the screen.
yes,
We cannot
yes, I know.
we
Sure,
cannot see
sure.
anything.
Right, just a minute, it will be there. It is actually taking time to refresh, I think. Anyways, no problem. So meanwhile, I'm drawing things and I will explain it to you.
Yeah, that will be better.
All right, so looks like it is on the way. Just a minute. Huh? Is this good visible to you?
Yes, it is.
See, as you can see that Mumbai region, and within Mumbai region to some availability zone, I have my this overall computing related infrastructure, and I do have a network over there, and in that network I do have a public subnet and a private subnet. All right. So in public subnet, I do have my line of business application web servers, and in my private subnet, I do have my, you know, line of business database servers. And then I do have the load balancer. All right. So what this load balancer does, as you all know, it will distribute the request load, as we all know. And it will request with different rules what you can apply with. All right, either you can apply with a round robin, and there are a couple of other rules also. Okay, so this is basically the load balancer, what it is going to do. Is that okay? And finally, the request will land to the load balancer, and then from the load balancer, it will be distributed either to line of business application server number one. And once the request is given to server number one, the second request will go to server number two, third request will go to server number three, fourth request will go to server number, sorry, third request will go to server number one, and fourth request will go to server number two. So this way it does the job. Is that okay? Now remember one thing, that load balancer, load balancer load balancer can work on any protocol. Okay, but there is another logic. That another logic is app gateway. Now what is the difference between load balancer and the app gateway? The only difference between load balancer and app gateway is app gateway works only for web-based application through HTTPS. What load balancer was doing with respect to distribution of load, the app gateway also does the same thing, but app gateway only does it for line of business application who are web based. And you have further more customization into it based on, even you can configure some rules in app gateway.
No, here the app gateway you are referring to the WAF service or something different?
I would simply say the line of business application which can be delivered through web. For them, there is a specific, service, what we call it as app gateway. An app gateway, it only works on either HTTP or HTTPS protocol. It does not support any other protocol. Please remember this. Got it? This is the only difference between both of them. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Now, Going ahead further, so I'm just clearing this and bringing few more things like discussing the VPN gateway. Consider on-prem. So my line of business application database is on-prem, and my line of business application web server is on cloud. Got it? So this is Azure, huh? And you do have your what you call it as private subnet and public subnet over there also. But they are two different geographic locations itself. So when the communication is supposed to happen, okay, when the communication is supposed to happen between both of them, just like if a customer puts up a request, then that request will come to the line of business application server. Like for example, his request is coming from internet. So this is my user, and from internet, his request has come over here. And now his request is supposed to be served. So for serving his request, line of business application web server is responding, but it also requires the DB. So this communication between the DB and the line of business application web server can only be conducted through VPN gateway. All right. So whenever from on-premises to Azure, there is a connection being made between two, resources, then that should use a VPN gateway. Now see, this VPN gateway is using internet only. Please remember that. Got it? But it is not using a, public internet. The same logic, it is creating a tunnel kind of a thing. And few months ago, I have come across that there is another service, what you call it as express route. Now this express route is something like a lease line from your on-premises to the Azure. Got it? But I am not pretty sure that is this service available for India region. Because see, the services can be available in some region and they may be unavailable in some region. So please remember this. All right. So if this is clear to you, then I would like to go ahead. Is that okay to all of you?
Yes.
All right, good to go. And then we have last, what is CDN? So just imagine once again that this is region Mumbai, and within this region Mumbai, I do have my line of business application, and I have one of my audience in Pune, one of my audience in Bangalore, one of my audience is at Noida. All right. For Pune, accessing the line of business application and the response is very good. I would say user experience of Pune is superb. But user experience of Bangalore is average. But user experience of Noida is not at all acceptable. So how do I overcome this? To overcome this, the best strategy would be to come up with CDN. content delivery network. Now, CDN is something what I can call it as a cache. So this is basically a caching server. And who manages and maintains these caching servers? The CDN partner Verizon. All right. And whomsoever is subscribing CDN service, then whatever is the static content of his line of business application. Static content means just like some document files, some video clips, some product list. If you are an online shopping portal, then definitely product list is also very huge. Some images, these are all static content. So what we can do, we can place this static content copy to every CDN. And whenever the Bangalore user is coming across my line of business application, and if his demand requires a static content, then he will be delivered the static content from here itself. And what this is gonna do, this is going to enhance their user experience. If they require any dynamic content, then still they have to come to Mumbai. Is that okay to you now?
Just one question.
Yes, go ahead.
CDN is placed locally. For there is a CDN in Noida, CDN in Bangalore.
No, it's not that way actually. Just to draw, I have put, but generally, there are CDN locations also. I I'm aware that Delhi is one of the CDN location, and Bangalore is also one of the CDN location.
To
And
cater a particular region.
yes, yes. So if I am receiving the request from even Chennai also, then they will, go to Bangalore CDN for static content.
And these CDNs act as a DNS as well.
No, no, no. They don't act as a DNS. They don't act as a DNS. See, that DNS and all that, that is something this Azure itself will take care in backend. All right.
Yeah.
See, you will never come to know that you are accessing the resources from CDN. I mean to say, your customer will never come to know that he's getting the resources from CDN. This is something hidden to him. This is your architectural, decision. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is this clear to you all? All
yeah,
right,
yeah.
good to go.
Good
Thanks
to
a
go.
lot. And going ahead. Okay. So I'll once again start to share my system screen, and as we have seen what is a virtual network. So a virtual network is nothing but a local area network. What you have on premises, similarly you are having it on cloud. I mean to say Azure. All right. And this is all virtualized networking. Huh? Please remember. Correct. And then you have a load balancer, you have a application gateway, and you have a VPN gateway, and you have content delivery network. All right. So going ahead and focusing on storage. Okay. Now, when it comes to storage, you can store a file, you can store a message, you can store a table, and there is a huge, data type, I can simply say. Okay. But just understand these four storage products, what you have from Azure. You may have heard about Dropbox and Google Drive and OneDrive. Can you please tell me how do you access them?
Over the web.
Over the web. Very good. This is a very precise answer, and this was actually expected. See, always remember that whenever it comes to Dropbox, Google Drive, or OneDrive, you will require internet, and through internet only you can connect to these storage. Now, another query. When you connect to this storage, definitely this storage must be on the partition of a hard drive, and definitely there is a file system also. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, tell me, did you created that partition on the hard drive and you installed file system over there? No, you did not do this. Who did it for you? The Dropbox company, the Google itself for Google Drive, Microsoft for OneDrive. Same logic when you want to, do from Azure, you will be using the blob storage. You will be using the blob storage. Blob stands for binary large object. Okay, and binary large object container can be accessed through web only, and you can store any kind of data over here. It can be file, it can be audio, video, image. All right, is that okay to you? And this is highly scalable and available. By default, you know, Azure will maintain, 3 copy of your data, 1 plus 2, so that if in case whenever you request for the access of your data, if the primary copy of the data is under maintenance, I mean to say the hardware where it is, if it is under maintenance, then it will provide you with the copy of your data from the secondary location.
So this is
Got it?
basically used for your unstructured data.
Exactly. You go for your unstructured data. Absolutely true. Got
And
it?
do they use the same concept like availability sets for blob storage exist, or
See,
it's by default maintained?
it is by default maintained and it is the duty of Azure. See, this is something I told you that there will be 1 plus 2 copy, but your customer never knows that there is 1 plus 2. Got it?
Okay,
This is
got it.
something Azure does it to achieve the high scalability and availability. Got it? And then finally coming to the disk. Now see, when you ask for computing, they provide you with a disk. Got it? That disk is not persistent. That disk is temporary. If you will terminate your instance on Azure Cloud, you will lose the disk and the data inside the disk. So if you want that your disk should be persistent, then in that case I would advise you to store your disk into disk storage. For this disk storage, definitely you will be charged additional apart from the cost of the VM. For example, if cost of the VM is 15 rupees per hour, then there will be additional cost of disk storage and it will be based on GB. But what is the best of using the disk storage? Your hard drives are not temporary, they are persistent. Even though if you terminate your instances, all the hardware will be deleted except your hard drive, and your data is preserved in that hard drive. So that in future, if you once again spin up an instance, it will ask you, do you want a disk or you want to use an existing disk? I would say no, I would be using an existing disk. Got it? Is that okay? Is this
Yes.
clear to you? All right, and then going ahead with respect to file storage. Now we all know that we have a file server within our company local area network. And why are we provided with the file server? So that we can store the company data on that file server, so that it becomes easier for the backup infrastructure team to take the backup. Rather than taking the backup of all the systems, they will only take the backup of the file server because it has the business data. Got it? So same thing can be provided to you on Azure also. And what is the difference between the file storage and the only difference between the file storage and the blob storage is blob storage is accessed through web, file storage is not accessed through web. It is accessed via NFS or CIFS protocol. Got it? And who is going to manage and maintain this file server? Azure itself. You did not need to worry about it. You simply need to assign the access to your users to this file storage. Got it? And then you have the archive storage. Now, what exactly archive storage is? It is very simple. The data which is not being accessed frequently, that data you can put onto the archive storage. I have seen most of the companies, what are they doing? They are maintaining the, backup on premises on the hard drive, and they are maintaining the secondary copy of the backup on cloud storage, that is archive storage. Because see, they find it convenient and cost effective as compared to maintaining the tape libraries on their environment. Got it? So remember that
So
archive storage is something.
previously they used to do as a offshore storage, right? The company used to do
Yes,
down the
yes,
line the offshore,
yeah,
but that is a cost is one of the most uh, critical criteria. So maybe they can go for the cloud.
exactly. Right, right. So what earlier used to happen, they used to have the primary copy on premises and the secondary copy is a tape, and that tape is supposed to be vaulted to a different location so that in case if this location, comes across a natural disaster, still you have the backup and you can bring things from the copy of backup onto the secondary location. But definitely, pulling the data from the tape itself is a time consuming task. So this is the, perspective from where, that RPO and RTO, terminologies come into picture. Recovery time objective and recovery point objective. Recovery point objective means how much data you are ready to lose, and recovery time objective means for how much time you can keep your business discontinued. All right. So on the basis of these perspective only, you plan your backup infrastructure. All
So
right.
is
So
there
I
any
hope.
retention period by Azure also they are maintaining in terms of the customers' data?
No, 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 no. There is no retention period. See, for Azure, it is, something like their resources are being consumed. Got it? See, they need to just provide you with the storage. Now it is your duty that for how much time duration you want to maintain that secondary copy. If your company has a policy that, like archive data should be maintained for 3 years, then you maintain it for 3 years, and after that, if you want, you can discard it. Got it? And once again, you can start putting the fresh data onto the archive storage. See, retention is something you have to decide. It is not Azure who is going to decide for you.
Got it. Got it. Thanks.
Got it? Because see, they are there to sell their resources. The more you consume their storage, the more they will earn. All right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if this is clear to you all, then going ahead and finally, I do have database. Now, with respect to database, there are three main services and they all are platform as a service. It means you need not need to do anything. Everything is well organized and taken care by Azure itself. So if you're looking forward to non-relational database, then go for Cosmos DB. Okay. And Cosmos DB is, very, very high performance. And the best part is it is globally distributed. When I say globally distributed, I mean to say, you know, it is it is like at every data center of Azure. So once you subscribe, Cosmos DB, and if you have put that database onto Cosmos DB, then if you have a customer or if you have any of your like say if your company has a location in Singapore also, then Singapore office will be able to get the same database from the Singapore location. Got it? And you will be getting the data from Mumbai location. That is what the beauty of this Cosmos DB is. And you need not need to worry about the scalability and the elasticity of this Cosmos DB. Who takes care of it? Azure team itself. Now, if you're looking forward to relational database, then you should focus on Azure SQL database. Got it? So you will get Azure SQL database, and finally you will be just subscribing this Azure SQL database. But Azure SQL database is not globally distributed, remember. Got it? If you want it to be accessed at another region, then definitely you have to spin up an service request over there also to enhance the performance. But if you don't want, then Singapore team members will be landing for database onto Mumbai region only. And then you have the migration service. So if you have some database on premises and if you look forward to migrate it to Azure, then they have this fully managed database migration service. And first they will come and inspect your on-premises database, and then they will inform you like this is what the amount of data supposed to be uploaded, and finally how do you want to take it ahead, offline migration or online. If you say offline, then your line of business application will be brought to maintenance, and if you say online, then there will be no downtime. It will be a small glitch, a very small minute glitch. And when it is going to happen, first of all they will create a copy of your database, and once this copy is created, this copy will be used for uploading it onto the cloud, and once it is uploaded to the cloud, then finally line of business application will be mapped to this database on cloud, and it will be serving from the database on cloud and from the on-premises database. And once it is successfully operational from on-premises, database on cloud, they will do a cut of mapping from on-premises database and line of business application. So this is not going to affect anywhere. All right. So this is all something from the perspective of database, and believe me, I would, always say that do not land into any headache of infrastructure, nor operating systems administration, nor database administration. Focus only and only for making your business application agile. Focus only on your application. Don't focus on the underlying infrastructure headaches. All right. So if this is good to go, I will go ahead. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Only one question. While copying this database, let's say in the online environment, there are certain things where some of the database file which is already in use, there is a possibility slightly glitch in terms of that file will be not copied from on-prem to Azure platform. So how Azure will take care of that thing in terms of the
No,
minimum
no,
downtime? Yeah.
no. See, if it is offline, then definitely new data is not being generated. Got it? But if it is online, then you you may have missed. I told that the DB on Azure and the DB on premises both are running for some point of time, so that there is exact synchronization between both of them. And once that synchronization exact, then only that on-prem database is disconnected.
Okay, got it. So maybe that
Got it?
synchronization will ensure that the 100% encryption
Yes,
or the
that
replication is
all the
done.
data, yes, right. That you have all the data at Azure DB, and the same data was at on-prem DB. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Any
thanks.
doubt further?
No, thanks. I
Thanks
think
a
it's
lot.
clear. Yeah.
All right. Good to go. Thank you. And finally, we have marketplace. See, I will say that marketplace is very much similar to that Play Store. Got it? Because see, you may come across, a scenario wherein, you know, you can get a ready-made appliance. Got it? For example, I do not know how to create a PHP environment. on Linux. Got it? And if I go and ask the same to Azure to do for me, then I'm finding that their cost is going a little higher. Got it? In that case, what I can do, I can come to marketplace, and at marketplace, you will have the listing for different solutions and services which are already available from different vendors. Got it? So, for example, I may consider that Innovative Technology Solutions is solutions partner to Azure, and on marketplace they have, and they have also created another image of Linux which has MySQL database installed. So in that case, what you can do, you can simply opt both of these images, and you are supposed to pay to the Innovative Technology Solutions, and finally you can spin up these VMs onto the resources what you hired from Azure. All right, and then you can just put up your code on the PHP Linux machine, and finally everything becomes operational. May happen that you may not be competent enough to configure DNS. So definitely within the same PHP machine, the vendor may have configured DNS also for you. So I would say marketplace is a portal where you have all the appliances ready. All right, and all these appliances, they are already tried and tested by the vendors as well as the other cloud consumers. Got it? And so far there are around 8,000 services and solutions on marketplace. Got the point? So marketplace makes your life very easy. All right, if it is clear to you, then I would like to go ahead. So can you please acknowledge?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yes, please.
All
Yes.
right. Thanks a lot. Going ahead. And finally, I do have Azure Solutions. But before I start Azure Solutions, let's go for a small short break of 5 to 10 minutes and come back fast. I would really appreciate if you can come before 10 minutes. All right. So, shall we go ahead
Okay.
for a break? All right.
Sure.
See you all within 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, class, I'm back. So, shall we go ahead?
Yeah, we can start.
Alright, so let's go ahead. See, basically, when you consider Azure solution, then it is either a platform as a service or it can be software as a service. But they have specific business use cases for which they have developed Azure solutions. All right, this is a generalized overview. So remember, if you are from a specific business use case, just like big data, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, for such kind of business, there are mostly Azure solutions developed. Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss the same. So, Internet of Things. Now, sorry, not not going into too much of technicalities, but keeping it very straight, simple with the help of an example. Okay, so remember that you have two, you know, solutions. So either you can go for IoT Central and you have IoT Hub. But to explain you all these things, I'm going to use the whiteboard. All right. So bringing my whiteboard online and discussing the same. This may take some time for you to view the whiteboard. Okay, so there you get to see my whiteboard. Now, just imagine that this is a room. The right side is the room, and there is a door. Okay, and I would say that this is the locker. All right, and I do have my physical security also over here. And I do have a webcam, and definitely there is a database also. Now, as this is the locker, and as I have my precious documents over here, and finally I have this physical security, and there is a webcam. On this webcam, there is the image of security team face recognition. All right, sorry, into the database. First, the webcam has captured, and after capturing it, it has stored into the DB. So that whenever daily these security, members they come in, the webcam, scans their face and checks them with already stored images and DB, and finally recognizes them that these are from the physical security team. Now, also this door has a electronic door locking system. Electronic door locking system is also here, and this is also a program. Now, one fine day, from this door, not okay. So I would say that one fine day, someone tries to enter this room, and after he tries to enter this room, this webcam will immediately, scan his face, and after scanning his face, it will go to the DB, and from DB it will look into the images. Does there any match? So it finds that there is no match, and what it does, it immediately drops a message to the electronic door system. And what does electronic door system does? It locks the door. So this is basically one of the best example of Internet of Things. Is that okay to you? Did you understand? Hello.
Yes.
All right. Now you need to also understand that the webcam, which is an IP device, the electronic door system, that is an IP device, and they all communicate with each other to lock this door and to only allow access to the recognized people. So this is only Internet of Things, and all these messages what has been flowing, they are all stored at one place, on the basis of which the further actions are taken. Okay, so if this is clear to you, I will come back to my presentation. Okay, so going back to my presentation, and once again starting to share my presentation. So as you all can see that you have this IoT Central. So IoT Central is a one-stop shop at Azure, which provides you a very good software as a service. This is that console from where you can connect to your IoT devices. You can monitor everything, as well as you can manage your IoT related operations. Okay, so this is that one single console. Now if you have decided to put all these things on premises, then to come up with this overall console, you will require hardware, you will require operating system. On top of that operating system, you will require the software who is capable of connecting the IoT devices, I mean to say giving the instructions, monitoring, and even managing. So you did not need to worry about all these things. All these things are done for you. You simply need to start accessing it so that you can start controlling your IoT related solutions from one single stop. Also, I was speaking with respect to those messages which are received and transmit between the different IoT devices. So all these messages are also stored in IoT hub. Got it? Which you can use it in future use if required. So these are the two solutions for IoT especially. Is that okay to you all? Shall I
Yes.
go ahead? All right.
Yes.
So thanks a lot, and going ahead. And then further we have something called as big data and analytics. All right. So for companies who are into big data, how you know a solution they are being provided from Azure. Let's explore that. So once again, going back to my whiteboard. But before that, I would like to make you clear, big data is just a term. Big data is just a term. And finally, the data what you have, which is raw data for any business, and from that raw data the company actually does processing with the help of Hadoop like frameworks. All right, and after doing that processing, finally they have the business valuable data. See, raw data is something what the business has. How they collect it? They collect it from social media, they collect it from even IoT, they even collect it from CRM, and they have their different promotional mechanisms from where they pull the data. And after pulling that data, they are supposed to host this data. For hosting this data, they have this data warehouse. So if you are into big data, then for hosting your raw data, you can use Azure SQL data warehouse. And finally, this data requires the processing. And who provides the processing? The processing is to be provided by the HD Insight. HD Insight is basically, the Hadoop and backend, and finally it does all the processing based on your filtration so that it can pull the business valuable data. And finally, this business valuable data is, further presented in the form of reports to the people who can, identify the prospective customer, and then they start doing their sales to those customers. All right, so this is like an in general idea, but let me put these things onto the whiteboard. All right, so going ahead and putting it on whiteboard. All right, so the whiteboard is on the screen now, and I hope everyone is viewing that whiteboard. So finally, I am making it very clear to you. So I have data collection. All right. So this data collection can be CRM. This can be IoT. This can be social media, etc. All right. Now the company has a huge raw data. And where is this raw data? Into DW, data warehouse. And finally, onto this data warehouse, a processing is applied. All right. And who does this processing activity? Hadoop. All right. And after this, what do you have? You have the business valuable data. All right. So all this business valuable data is further, provided in the form of reports onto which basically, the business is proposed. All right. So this is an generic idea. All right. So if it is okay to you, then I'll move back to my presentation. Is this okay to you all?
I have a question. This business valuable data, what is the form of storage? It is the data lake or data factory?
Can you please repeat?
Yeah. So what is the form of this data storage, business valuable data? So is it the same data lake or data factory? They do store the data.
Well, I would say that you just consider that, okay, I would say that my shop is especially for, men's gift. All right. And I have my different sources from where I have get the data, and finally I do have the data in my data warehouse, and I want Hadoop to process this data. So what I would put on Hadoop bring me the, you know, a list of males whose age is somewhere in between, I would say 20 to 40. Got it?
Yeah.
So I will have, this data, because, a father can, gift something to his son, or else even a, mother or wife or sister or fiance, they can also, gift to their, brother or husband or fiance. So what I will put up the second code, bring me the list of ladies also. So what generally we know, people in the age of 20 and 40 are mostly, they are like more lively. So they have all these things in their, life happening in that time, and finally, I will have the valuable data. I will have the list of ladies, as well as I will have the list of gents, to whom I have identified as my prospective business, and I can start giving them my promotional offers and perform the sales.
Okay.
See, when it comes to what would be the form of the data, I can simply say, yes, there is a name, there is a gender, there is his age, I will have his email ID, I will have his phone number, I will have his address. Got it? I didn't understand one thing, why that data lake and data factory? Hello? All right, so if you are comfortable, I am going ahead. So,
Yes, please.
moving to my presentation. Thank you. All right, so sharing the presentation, and there I go. All right, so we do have data warehouse, Azure SQL, and data warehouse will allow you to just host your raw data, and finally this raw data is supposed to be processed by HD inside. Now the above two are platform as a service, please remember. But the below one, data lake analytics, this is purely software as a service. All right. So what you would do, you would simply give the sample. You will simply give the sample. I mean to say, you will give the raw data to data analytics, data lake analytics. And what data lake analytics will do, data lake analytics, software in backend has all these things aligned, like HD inside and data warehouse. That all those stuffs will be taken care by Azure itself. Got it? Even the data lake analytics software is also taken care by Azure. Whereas if you go for data warehouse and if you go for HD inside, there will be couple of big data related operations responsibility on you. But laying down the infrastructure, installing operating system, installing Hadoop and all that, that will be taken care by Azure. But in data lake analytics, you need not need to worry about anything. You simply put your raw data, and after that you apply the filters, and you will start receiving the business value data. Got it? So this is what is all about your big data solutions and analytics. Is this okay to you?
Yes.
All right. So going ahead further, and let's discuss what else. Now, artificial intelligence. Okay, just once again keeping things straight, simple, and example oriented. Going to my whiteboard, and we'll put up things to you. Okay, I have been listening since very long that computer is an intelligent device. All right. If computer is an intelligent device, then why are we feeding him the programs to do the job? We should not do this because then I would say that computer is not intelligent. The program is intelligent. The program is making, perform computer intelligently. So let us try to, explore the intelligence of computer. And that is why you have basically those terms. So artificial intelligence, AI. AI is a solution, but in backend to AI, you have two things. You have machine learning and you have deep learning. Actually, if you will very closely start working on artificial intelligence, you will come to understand that it is only deep learning. And the process of deep learning itself is declared as machine learning. Got it? So, anyways, consider this example and things will be very clear to you. Just imagine that I do have a list, and in this list, I do have words like loss, technology. Now, what output I want? I want from singular, it should go to plural. So the plural of loss is losses. Got it? So what did I do? I have given one sample to the computer saying that if you see loss, then the output should come as losses. There is an input and there is an output, which I have already given to the computer. Now, what the computer is supposed to do, he is supposed to take some time and do deep learning on this list by considering my one sample. And after that, he himself should derive that if the singular word ends with the letter S, then I need to add ES after that. If the letter ends with the Y, then I need to add IES. Got the point? This is called as deep learning. Is that okay to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Am I correct? This is the logic of deep learning, and for this, we are not using any program. We want the computer on its own should start learning, and for this, it takes a little bit of time, but it does the job. All right, fine. So, finally, this is only AI. Let the machine learn. Tell him one perspective and let him explore other perspectives. Got it? So if you are clear with this, I would close this and come back to my, presentation. Is that okay to you?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
All right. So going ahead and this is the presentation. All right. So as I have explained you that we do have artificial intelligence, and when it comes to artificial intelligence, we do have a solution called as machine learning service. So when it comes to machine learning service, you have everything set up from Azure. And what you can do, you can start developing your samples. You can start, deploying your samples, testing your samples, and how the computer is learning from the samples. You can all manage from this, you know, machine learning services. Got it? But the sample is supposed to be provided by you. Please remember. Got it? You have to develop the sample over here. Got it? What you also call it as learning models. But then on the other hand, you have another service, what you call it as machine learning studio. In machine learning studio, you need not need to even put up the sample. Got it? You simply put your query. Like for example, I would say that I will give two of my images. Got it? I will give two of my images, one of the age 20 and another of my current age. And then I will put this to the machine learning studio. And what the machine learning studio is supposed to do for me? He himself should learn. Got it? That are these two pictures of the same person or it has some variation. I have not given any sample over here. Got it? Similarly, you can just put up any other raw data to it and you can ask that I am looking forward to this result. Then what he will do? He himself will search for the different samples available within Machine Learning Studio to fetch the results for you from the raw data. Got the point? So this is the difference between machine learning service and the machine learning studio. In service, you give the sample or you develop the sample. In studio, you do not do anything. You just give your data onto which you want the artificial intelligence to be applied. Okay? Is that okay to you?
Yes.
All right. So going ahead further, and what next do I have? So I do have serverless computing. See, I told you in the computing, VM category itself that Azure function. So what does an Azure function do? An Azure function will, come into picture whenever there is an event. And what was that event? Data being stored on that storage. And then Azure function is supposed to run my code, and what that code is going to do, it will go to the storage, it will, diagnose the file to collect, inspect the file to collect the information related to who is the user, what time he created, what is the size of the file, what is the type of the file. All right. Now, if further you want to continue with this operation as a workflow, further, if you want to continue this operation as a workflow or a business process, got it? Then you will have Azure Logic App. In Azure Logic App, what is happening? You have multiple functions performing. It's a kind of a chain of functions to form a workflow. So I am extending the same example. I am saying that once there is a information about the metadata of the different files stored on that storage, and now this metadata is stored into database. Then what I want, another code should run and he should go to the storage. He should identify all the files who are text files. He should cut all those files and he should store them into another storage. Similarly, pictures. So he should cut them from that storage and he should put them into another storage which has only pictures. So I will have multiple storage like storage for text file, storage for pictures, storage for MP3, storage for audio. Got it? So this has finally made a workflow. Is that okay? And then what exactly event grid is? Now for event grid, you consider that I am using Flipkart. I have, searched for some good. After surfing for some goods, I finally placed the order for that goods. Now, what is the next task? The next task is logistics. So, for logistics purpose, what should be done? From the Flipkart database, the logistics application should receive the information of the user who has placed this order. So finally, what will happen? The logistics will print the name of the person, the mobile number of the person, the address of the person, and it will paste onto the packaging, and finally it will get delivered. So there were two applications, Flipkart as well as the logistics. So the sharing of messages or the shared information between both of them, this is called as event grid. All right, so that Flipkart application is doing his job, and whatever the input he has of the user, the same, when logistic application is asking for, it is provided to the logistics application, so that finally it can print that on a paper and paste onto the packaging. Is that okay? Did you understand what is a function, what is a logic app, what is a event grid? And believe me, they all are serverless. They all are event oriented. None of them are something like, they will keep on running even though there is no, event happening. The moment event is complete, the resources of the serverless computing are released. So finally, you are only paying what you are using.